So, let me ask you a question. What if the biggest crime you could ever commit wasn't murder? What if it was just not crying at your own mother's funeral? It sounds wild, right? Well, that's exactly the question we're going to tackle today as we dive headfirst into Albert Camus's classic, The Stranger. It's short, it's sharp, and honestly, it's deeply unsettling. Okay, so the book kicks off with one of the most famous and frankly chilling first lines in all of literature. I mean, listen to this. You've got no grief, zero sentimentality, just this cold, hard, detached fact. Right from the get-go, Camus isn't just introducing a character. He's making a statement. He's setting this tone of complete indifference that, believe me, is going to follow us through the entire story. And boom, just like that, with one single sentence, we're thrown right into the heart of the mystery. You can't help but ask, right? Who is this guy, Meursault? And what on earth is going on behind that unnerving disconnect he has from everything, from the world, from love, even from death itself? Okay, so to even begin to get a handle on this guy, you've got to step into his world. And it's a world that's not lived through emotions or deep thoughts. Nope, it's lived through the skin. For Meursault, who's a French Algerian, life is basically just a string of physical feelings. You know, the sun beating down on his neck, the taste of his coffee, the feeling of cold water. That's what's real to him. That's his entire reality. So the first part of the book, it all goes down in one crazy, fateful week. It starts with his mom's funeral, right? But he's more bothered by how hot it is than, being sad. The very next day, he's already at the beach, starting things up with a woman named Marie. And then he just kind of gets pulled into his neighbor Raymond's whole drama-filled violent life. All these things feel so random and disconnected, but they're all marching towards one single moment, this shocking, senseless act of violence on a blazing hot beach. And this moment, this is where we really see what Meursault is all about. He doesn't shoot the guy because he's angry or evil. No. The book presents it as a purely physical thing, like he's just hit his breaking point from sensory overload. He talks about the sun being like a cymbals crash. The heat is suffocating. The light is blinding him. It's almost like the trigger wasn't pulled by a person making a choice, but by a body that was just completely overwhelmed by the elements. So after the murder, Meursault gets arrested, and the whole story just pivots. It's a complete 180. We go from those hot, sun-drenched beaches to this cold, sterile courtroom. But here's the thing. This isn't really a trial about murder. Oh no, it's a trial of the man's entire being, his very soul. And this is where you find the most mind-blowing irony in the whole book. The prosecutor, he barely even talks about the man who died. Instead, he puts Meursault's character on trial. The fact that he didn't cry at his mom's funeral, the fact that he went swimming the next day, these are held up as the real evidence. They're presented as proof that this guy is a monster, a man with no soul, and therefore he's capable of anything. So really, Meursault is condemned not for what he did, but for who he is. He's an outsider. He just refuses to play the social games that we all just accept as normal. He won't pretend to feel something he doesn't. When they ask him if he loves Marie, he's just honest. I probably don't. Ask him if he believes in God, straight up, no. And in a world that's kind of built on all these little white lies and polite fictions, that kind of raw honesty, well, it's seen as a threat. And for that, society decides he has to be punished. So you're probably thinking, is this guy just a sociopath? And that's a fair question. But what if there is a deeper logic to his whole vibe? To really get him, we have to unlock the philosophy he's living in. And that philosophy is all about one powerful idea: absurdism. This was a concept that the author Albert Camus was a huge proponent of. Okay, so what is absurdism? Imagine screaming at the top of your lungs into a giant, empty canyon, and all you hear back is silence. That feeling? That's absurdism. It's this fundamental conflict, right, between us humans desperately trying to find meaning and purpose in everything, and a universe that just stares back. Totally silent, totally random, and completely indifferent to our search. Let's break it down real simple. Step 1. We humans, we're hardwired to look for meaning, for order, for some kind of big plan. That's just what we do. Step 2. The universe, it doesn't provide any of that. Not a shred. As Camus saw it, it's just this huge silent place with no built-in meaning. So step 3, the absurd, is that gap you live in. It's the tension between our desperate need for answers and the universe's total silence. And right there, smack in the middle of that gap, that's where you find Meursault. See, he isn't a monster. In this way of thinking, he's actually an absurd hero. He's a guy who has, whether he knows it or not, just accepted the universe for what it is, indifferent. He's not looking for some grand purpose because he's realized there isn't one to find. He just lives, moment to moment. He's completely stripped of all the illusions we all use to protect ourselves from this terrifying idea that maybe none of it means anything. Now, look, that is a pretty bleak way to see the world. I'll give you that. But it's also brutally honest. And I think that's why this story, which was written way back in 1942, still hits so hard today. It makes us look in the mirror and ask some really, really big questions about our own lives. So, there's no denying this novel is powerful. It's deep, philosophically speaking, and the narrative voice is one of a kind. But, and this is a big but, its greatest strengths are also what make it so tough for some readers. I mean, on the one hand, you have this profound story. On the other, Meursault is so emotionally distant that it can be really hard to connect with him. The writing style is minimalist and powerful, sure, but it can also feel kind of cold. And the ending, well, let's just say it doesn't give you any easy answers, which, when you think about it, is kind of the whole point. When you get right down to it, The Stranger isn't really just a story. It's a mirror. It holds it up to you and forces you to ask some pretty uncomfortable questions. Like, think about your own life. Are the emotions you show people totally genuine, or are you kind of performing for them? How much of your personality is the real you, and how much is you just playing the part that you think society expects you to play? And that all leads to the one big question that just hangs in the air long after you finish the book. If you accept that we live in a world with no grand plan, no higher purpose, a world that, at its core, just doesn't care that we're here, then how do you live an honest life? That's the challenge that The Stranger throws down. And honestly, it's a question that every single one of us has to figure out for ourselves.